Okay, so here's our basic introduction to Gmail, Google Calendar, and how to set yourself up for success. So we're going to kind of go over um, Google Mail, which is called Gmail, Chrome basically is the browser for that, but what Drive kind of is and how you can better use it for your purposes, Google Docs, and just some other quick Google apps to help you really organize, access, use communication with your projects, your staff, or your board, as well as document sharing. So if you use Google Chrome as your web browser, you have several different options. Usually this is kind of your login screen. On this top left, you'll have what I call like the box of boxes, where it's 9 boxes strategically. That's Google's little quick button for apps where you can access Google Drive, Gmail, Sheets, anything else you may need. So once you get into the Google Mail, you can also access that box of boxes up here on the right if you need to switch between your inbox for email and go to Google Drive to access any other documents. Like I said, we're going to kind of go over Google Drive, very briefly Google Docs, Calendar, and Gmail for the most part today. So in Gmail, when you very first set up your account, and some of you may have come into a district that has already set up account, so you're not going to be at this very beginning screen. However, you might still have these features. So the default setup for Gmail currently has this kind of primary, social, and promotions options. And that's where the AI and the artificial intelligence of Google kicks into play on when it puts emails in those categories. You are also welcome if anything comes into your primary inbox, and let's say it's an NACD e-resource newsletter. I think they also do those weekly bulletins. And you're like, I just don't have time to read these all the time, but I want to make sure that I'm still getting them. You can drag them over to maybe a promotions piece or something and have them all go there. So as they come into your inbox, they would go into that promotions kind of folder, if you will, for you to access later when you have time to kind of browse those. But there are several other options, of course. You also have customized options for your inbox. The little cog wheel is always your settings, anything you're doing in Google. You will have some quick settings where you can change some density and themes, and there'll be a whole drop-down box for you. Or you can just click on the see all settings. So one that I think several of our staff have found very helpful and useful, and it's one that I use, is the priority inbox. So you can click it from this kind of quick setting menu option. You can click the priority inbox right here and hit customize, and it will bring you to the same screen. You can also go to that see all settings option, and you will get to where it says inbox here. You can choose that. So this is where you pick what type of inbox you would like. So like mine is the priority inbox. And this is where I can pick the sections. Now, I kind of like to have a smaller inbox. I don't empty out my inbox every day, like a lot of people are really good at doing. There's just too many for me. So I like it to be organized by my priorities and what I really need to get to right away. And then maybe some of those like, e-blast or newsletters kind of go in a different category. So I use the 3 options the most: important and unread, starred, and everything else. Now you can click on these options buttons to the right, and I'll go over what those are in just a second. The other thing is important markers is where that Google AI kicks in, and it will start to recognize if you receive a lot of emails from myself or from our grants email address that, hey, you read these a lot and you respond to them. So it'll start to mark it as an importance with this little tiny, you can't really see it very well, little yellow box, if you will. Now that means you can also mark emails as they come into your inbox with that importance marker yourself. And that would mean that it would come into your first section of your inbox in the important and unread area. So like I said, if you're doing the important and unread, you can click which one you like first. You can tell them how many items you want to show. So this doesn't mean that I don't have 200 items or emails in my important and unread, because there probably are. But I only want to see the 25, the most recent ones, because some of them I leave there for that are not a priority, or that I have a week or two that I can come back to them on a big project. So I want them to be on the top so I don't forget about them completely, but I don't want them at the very top of my screen. So I say show 25 items. I can still access all 200 of them very easily. Another option for organizing your inbox, as you can see, this is kind of what my inbox would have looked like, where I would have had important and unread up at the top, starred, and everything else. Now, I created kind of a dummy account just to show you, so you didn't see my horrible disaster of an inbox, but everything is in the everything else because I have not created any starred items yet, and I have not created anything that I considered important. So those fields are not full yet as far as my organization in my inbox. But the other option that Google does is called labels. And for those transferring from Outlook to Gmail, it's similar to Outlook's folders, but they just call them labels. So you can attach a label to, let's say I read this email for myself about open records information. I'm like, oh, that's important. I want to keep that in my legal category. So I would just check the legal box and hit apply, and it would categorize that right away. The other thing is that if I go to the left and I clicked on that legal folder, I would actually see any emails that have that label. Right to the left of that, the little folder box with the arrow is a move to label. And that is basically you're moving it to on your left, that legal folder, if you will. One other thing that I did not mark on here, but let me see. From the big drop-down box, if you go over 4 spots, there is a gray circle with a little timer. It looks like a clock. That is a snooze button. That is another feature I use a lot is I've read the email and I'm like, oh gosh, this is really important, but it's due tomorrow afternoon. So I want to look at it tomorrow and get it out of my inbox so I can focus on just what's coming in today. And so I can snooze that email to come back tomorrow at 8 a.m. And what that means is that it will go to this snooze folder on the left and it will hang out there. And then tomorrow morning, it will come in at 8 a.m. right back into my inbox as unread. And it'll have a little note that said it was snoozed 8 hours ago or something. So if that's, if you need to kind of set yourself up for the next day's tasks or things you don't want to forget, that's a good feature as well. Now for the Google Drive section. Google Drive is similar to your File Explorer, which is where you would have your folders, where you access documents on your desktop, and kind of, if you think of it that way, but a web-based folder system. The difference is that is actually useful once you get used to it, is that you can definitely click on the shared with me or recent documents. If you were working on something yesterday and you just want to get back right into it, you can click recent and it will be towards the top and you can just jump right in. The other option is this search drive feature is actually very robust. So it will search all the words in your spreadsheets, docs. It's actually doing a better job of searching Microsoft Office documents and spreadsheets for words. I know for a long time that didn't work very well, but it's doing a better job of that. So I say I forget the name of a document on notice of cancellation of election, and I just want to search cancellation because I don't remember the legal name. I can type that in there, and probably all 6 of these documents, SD11s and SD16s, will come up in that list because they have the name cancellation in the title, but also in the document itself. So another question is how do I share documents with my board? Or I'm working with our board treasurer on our budget. How can I share that with them? So you can right-click any document, or if you're open in any document, there's a big kind of to the right-hand side a share button. And you can click share. Now, what will happen is you'll come up with a share with people in groups, so you can start typing in an email and of who you want your board treasurer is to share that with them. And then you can also change permissions and say, I want them to edit this document, or I just want them to view this document because it has so many different moving parts. I know they're going to be looking at it on their cell phone and their tractor. We don't want them to actually hit a button and delete our budget or something. So it's view only, but we'll take notes. And then you can type in this message area. And what that does is when you have this little box checked for notify people and the message, it will email whoever you're sharing it to that message. So I can say, thanks, Danny. Here's the budget for your review. Call me when you have questions and have time and we can go over it. And you hit done and you're good to go. They've basically got an email telling them the direct link on where to go with your message on what you'd like them to do with that. So the big questions we used to get a lot as people were coming new into this is, what is the difference between Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Spreadsheet, and Google Slides? And if you think of it as Google Drive is your folder, is your file structure. This is like the legal definition for you, but it really is, Drive is your folder structure where it houses all those docs, spreadsheets, slides, all those other Google things. The other thing is Google Docs is Google's version of Microsoft Word. Spreadsheets is a version of Excel, and Slides is the versions of PowerPoint. Now, they work very well, and the export feature or converting feature, if you're working on a Microsoft Word document and you try to open it in Google and it says, would you like to convert it? The conversion actually is not messing up documents as much as before. It can still happen where it gets a little funky, but it's doing much better. So you can convert that to a Google Doc and work on that. There are differences, and I'm not going to go into them in this training because there's thousands of differences, especially if you're doing spreadsheets on formulas and what Google refers to as formatting and conditional formatting versus Microsoft Excel and their rules. They just use different terms. Of course, it can't be that easy, but basically anything you can do in one, you can do in the other. You just have to usually Google how to do it. So that is my number one problem solving, is Googling how to do Google. So like I said, you have your Drive and Documents options. And I'm going to share this presentation with everyone too, but here are some tutorial examples, websites, if you're switching from Microsoft to Google, saving a document from an email. There's some more links to go to. Now in Google Calendar, there's a lot of features that a lot of people don't know or realize. It can be, as usual, as easy or as complicated as you like. You can have multiple calendars for different things. So you can create a calendar that is just your board calendar and it has your board meetings or due dates when you need something specific from them so that they can access that and you can. And then you can have your day-to-day operational calendar for your own things. You can also connect to our calendar on our website, which will put all of our deadlines and due dates as a viewable option into your calendar. For my personal Google account, our family has 3. So we have one with our kids' activities. My husband and I have one where we call it the parents calendar, where we, track doctor's appointments. So we know who can take off work to do something and who can't. And then the family calendar we share with the grandparents so they know which kids' games are in town. It's probably over the top, but it does work. So what you can do is you'll originally see kind of the default calendar. And then down here on the bottom, you can see your other calendars and it will default them to a color. You can change those colors to whatever is easier for you. The CSCB-web calendar is the one that you can add that we would have when our matching grants documents are due, DCT applications. I will be putting next year's election calendar actually as calendar items so that you can, if you're syncing to our web one already, you will have those deadlines kind of already. You can hide that if that gets to be too much for you at any time. We try to keep it really simple and just the basics, or also district annual meetings and watershed meetings. And this is where you would do this. You would go to our district operations site, and on the home page, you have to scroll beneath the videos, but you'll have this CSCB web calendar. And as you can see, we kind of have the matching grant quarterly report due. This coffee hour is there. Ballots that might be due for certain watersheds might be listed here. And if you click on this plus Google Calendar on the bottom right, now if you're not seeing this as an option, it's because your web browser window is not big enough on your computer screen. So if you can maximize that, then you should be able to see this button fine. If you click that, it will add it right here under your other calendars, the CSCB web, and then you'll be connected. Ooh, sorry. So again, that's where you can display that calendar only. You can hide it from your list. You can change the colors to whatever you want. It makes sense for you. Another feature that some folks really like, I think you really have to be kind of more mobile or web-based to use this option, is Google Keep. It is basically, the simplest way to explain it is it's an electronic web-based Post-it. So Google Keep, you just have a whole bunch of different colored Post-its. You can organize by labels. You can color code them, whatever you want. The biggest key feature on this is that you can share those notes with other people. For instance, one example is we keep a running Google Keep note for our CSCB board meeting agendas, because as things come up or a board member says, I want to talk about this, we can add it to it so we don't forget it. Our meetings are like every 3 to 4 months, so it can be a little bit of time. And we can share that. So Raquel and Cindy and I all have access to it, so we can all add things in, but we also have it when we need to actually go and make the agenda for that board meeting. Everything's there. We didn't forget anything, and we're all kind of working together on that collaboratively. And the biggest thing that I use it for is I can access it from my phone. And so a lot of times in meetings, or I was at a conference in September and there were some really great sessions. And of course my pen died. So I was sitting there typing on my phone these notes from this breakout session into a Google Keep that I then was able to access later and get to those notes that I wanted to read. So this is kind of what your screen would look like. Here's your Post-its. These are just all gray, but you can change those colors. You can create labels. You can archive them. Some people really like it. Others stay far away. So it's really up to the user. And our biggest thing with all technology is that we don't have time to learn. I don't have time to sit down and watch a video, or I don't have time to figure this out. And that is perfectly okay. If you're doing fine and operating as you are right now, carry on by all means. But you can give yourself a little time and watch a thing here or there, or maybe just accidentally click on something and learn about it, or find a new feature. It can save your time in the future. And definitely the biggest thing is ask for help. Anyone else you know that uses Google and you want to do something with it, or you want to make a feature better or easier, you can definitely ask. All of us state employees, the field staff and office staff, we're all on Google. So some of us are stronger than others, but we can at least get you in contact with someone who might be able to help you answer your question, or get you some better advice. So I think that is it. That was the whirlwind of my presentation. Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to stop sharing my screen. But are there any questions or anything specifically anybody wants to, or struggling with, or would like help with? The biggest thing is that most of the districts are on the free Google Mail accounts. So those can be sometimes hard when you have district manager turnover and you might not have passwords. You might actually have to create a whole new account, and you will probably never get access to those old emails. There is, there's a couple options. You can go through a private security technology entity and get emails that are secured and service provided through them. You can also go through SIPA, which is the Statewide Internet Portal Authority. And they, as conservation districts are considered political subdivisions of the state, You can get a secure Google account with your district name. It might be a little hard if you already have a URL for your website, but you can talk with them. Definitely call them and give them a shot to see if they can use your domain name for as part of your email. If you want an email such as info@bigthompsoncd.org or something, they've been able to help with that. So it's an option. It is more secure than the free Google accounts. And they also provide tech support and training. When you have employee turnover, those emails don't go away. The access to those emails and the content stay there. So your new district manager or your new technician can have access to their predecessors' files, and projects can continue on and keep going. The other thing is sometimes they're also able to set up board email addresses for your board members that are specific to the conservation district instead of using their personal ones. I don't think many districts have done that, but several have started to use them for their email routing services. And it's about $50 a year, I think, is what I was talking to the lady in September, is what she was saying it was for those security services and the access.